Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Essential Album video. We're now on week 29, and this week we're taking a look at The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars by David Bowie. First released June 16th, 1972. Some notable tracks on this album include Moon Age Daydream, Starman, Ziggy Stardust, and Suffragette City. This is just an incredible album. We covered the 2023 series, the first Essential Album series. I covered Let's Dance, which I think is a pretty good album, but this I think is probably my favorite overall album from David Bowie. It's just absolutely incredible from start to finish. I picked it up on vinyl in I want to say I picked this up in 2016, but yeah, just that album art there, just incredible. I remember reading my research about the album artwork where it was, take a look at it again. But there's that, and there is the back there. These photos were done apparently in black and white, and then kind of just colored in later. And it kind of has this really kind of interesting quality to it, where it looks almost like a Technicolor painting, or something along those lines. So yeah, just an iconic album cover, and just an incredible album. I have some notes here about it, so we're going to get to that, and then we will get to our track list and all that kind of stuff as well. So let me just get this open here. So there we go. We're just calling it Ziggy Stardust for short, but again, June 16th, 1972. This is David Bowie's fifth studio album, and again, in my notes I have here written down one of, if not David Bowie's best albums. Shows up a lot on like ranking lists as being number one, and it's absolutely just incredible. It's a bit of a concept album, kind of tells a story. If you listen to the album in order, kind of basically the story is basically the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust, and then his band, the Spiders from Mars. So he's basically sent to Earth to prevent kind of like an apocalypse. And then kind of like his ego gets the better of him, causing his downfall, essentially. So yeah, bit of a concept album. Only, let's see, I guess 3 singles off of this. Starman and Suffragette City were both released, I think, together as a single. And then the other single is Rock and Roll Suicide. So yeah, the storyline basically goes that there is 5 years left for Earth. Basically, there's like a whole, like, some of it's a little bit optimistic, some of it isn't, but kind of like, I think, like, is it Soul Love, which is after that? Let me take a look here. Yeah, so 5 years is basically talking about kind of the impending apocalypse. Soul Love is about basically finding love in that kind of dark kind of situation. Ziggy Stardust is then, the character is introduced in the track Moon Age Daydream. One of the best tracks on the album. I think it's absolutely just an incredible song, like both lyrically and instrumentally. It might actually be my favorite track on the album. Ziggy Stardust is a really good track as well. So is Starman, Suffragette City. But basically gets introduced there, and then Starman has kind of Ziggy Stardust's character, like trying to present this kind of message of optimism, and then the song Ziggy Stardust, which is actually much later in the album, is kind of about his downfall and like his ego getting the better of him and stuff like that. So just a really great storyline going throughout the album. And then Suffragette City on this album was one of the first songs he used, or very early use for him, of the ARP synthesizer, which would then eventually show up in what's referred to as the Berlin Trilogy. So a lot of that stuff, like, obviously, like, recorded in Europe, of course, but Berlin Trilogy features the albums Low, Heroes, and Lodger. Out of those 3 albums, the only one I've listened to in full is Low. Low is absolutely also incredible. It's basically an ambient album with a few other songs on it. But yeah, Low is kind of like, I listened to that earlier this year, and it's just weirdly an ambient record that actually like works really well. Like over the last couple years, I've really started to like listen to a lot of ambient music. I find it very relaxing. But he worked with Brian Eno, kind of a pioneer in that genre. Some of that. So it's just interesting that the ARP synthesizer, which he would eventually use in Low, Heroes, and Lodger, kind of got its start here, or at least early use of it was in the song "Suffragette City," which is also one of the best songs on the album. I remember when they announced the first Rock Band game. I think it was the first. But yeah, David Bowie's "Suffragette City" is in that. I believe Ziggy Stardust actually shows up in the first Guitar Hero game. Yeah, the guitar on that is also just incredible. And this is essentially, like, I think, like basically a perfect album. I don't think there's any skips on it for me. Like I said, I picked up the vinyl in 2016. Listened to it again somewhat recently on vinyl, and it absolutely just sounds incredible. I'm going to have to go back and listen to some of the other stuff in that Berlin trilogy because I've listened to a good amount of David Bowie stuff over the last couple of years, like stuff like Young Americans, which I think is really good. Let's Dance is probably kind of in the middle, but it's also like I have a lot of fond memories because I have that on vinyl as well. Picked up Let's Dance kind of like at like a used like shop like a decade ago, probably more. But we're going to get into our reviews now, and this album is reviewed just incredibly well. Let me just pull this down to our reviews. So basically, almost perfect scores across the board, with a couple small exceptions here. All Music has it at a 5 out of 5. Blender has it at a 5 out of 5. Chicago Tribune a 4 out of 4. Kristall's Record Guide, one of the ones that kind of gives it a B plus. So B plus isn't terrible. Then we have the Encyclopedia of Popular Music giving it a 5. Pitchfork with a 10 out of 10. Q with a 5 out of 5. Rolling Stone Album Guide 5 out of 5. Slant Magazine 5 out of 5. Spin has it again at a 5 out of 5. The Spin Alternative Record Guide for some reason has it at an looks like an 8 out of 10, while Spin gave it a 5 out of 5. That's kind of weird. And then Uncut has it at a 5 out of 5 as well. So just basically universally critically acclaimed as this just incredible album. Kind of crazy that it came out like 53 years ago now, like just about. Yeah, I think it back in June would have had its 53rd anniversary. All right, we're gonna move into our track list on this, and yeah, the tracks on this are just absolutely stellar. You have, let's see, so you have like again, Suffragette City, Ziggy Stardust, Starman, Moon Age Daydream, like some of his greatest hits, in my opinion, or what I would have considered essential David Bowie songs, are off of this album. So let me just pull up to see how long the album is. It's not a terribly long album. Let me just go back to the top of here. It comes in at about 38 minutes and 29 seconds, so actually a really short album. Kind of like the perfect length for me is between like 35 and 45 minutes. So this kind of just nails that runtime perfectly. And then we have 9 tracks, so 38 minutes roughly. Let's see, that was 5. Let's see, so 6, 7, 8. Is it 11 tracks total? Let me take a look. Yeah, 11 tracks total on the album. So again, 11 tracks, 38 minutes roughly. Track 1 is 5 Years. That was really good. I hadn't really given that song a whole lot of like attention, like on my first like couple times listening to it. But most recently, I just like listened to it and like actually like really fell in love with that track. So track 1 is 5 Years. Track 2 is Soul Love. Pretty good track there. Track 3 is Moon Age Daydream, and I absolutely love Moon Age Daydream. Love that they included this on the soundtrack to the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, because I think I had listened to this album before that movie came out a couple times, and then got back into it again, like like with Guardians of the Galaxy, really reinvigorated my interest in the album. Also, the fact that some of the stuff was in like like Rock Band and Guitar Hero. But yeah, Moon Age Daydream, probably my favorite track on the album. Track 4 is Starman. That's also just an iconic David Bowie track. Track 5 is It Ain't Easy. And then it's a track 6. We get Lady Stardust. Track 7 is Star. Let's see, 5, 6, 7. Track 8 is Hang On To Yourself. I'm having to add the numbers in because they're it's basically side 1 is tracks 1 to 5. Side 2 is tracks 1 to 6. So it's 5, 6, 7, Yeah, track 8 is Hang On to Yourself. Track 9, title track of the album. Kind of a lot of the stuff that the storyline hinges on is in this track, and that is the title track of Ziggy Stardust. Track 10, we get Suffragette City, again, one of David Bowie's most iconic tracks. And then that's track 10. And then we end it with track 11 with Rock and Roll Suicide. So just a perfect album, essentially. Let's see. So, yeah, Suffragette City, incredible. Ziggy Stardust, incredible. Starman and Moon Age Daydream are basically like amazing songs. Moon Age Daydream is like a perfect song. If I were to make a list of like top 100 songs, I think, if I ever were to do that, I'm also trying to work through maybe doing something with my top 100 albums if I ever get around to that. That's kind of like a thing I'm just like want to make sure it's perfect before I even attempt it. I do keep a list of like where I think albums might rank. But yeah, this album would be up there for sure. And Moon Age Daydream, if I ever did like a list of like my top 100 favorite songs, Moon Age Daydream is right up there as well. Just an incredible album from him, and it kind of in the string of a lot of his better work. Let me actually just pull up the David Bowie discography because a lot of the stuff albums that came out around this time period are also just incredible. Like right before this, you get Hunky Dory, one of his best albums. Following that, we get I liked Aladdin Sane. Aladdin Sane I don't think is necessarily like ranked that highly, but it's pretty good. Then let me see. A few albums after that, we get Young Americans. I think Young Americans is also just an incredible album. Then followed by that, we get Stays in the Station, which was really good. Then Low, which was, like I said, basically an ambient record. It kind of has a lot of like art rock stuff to it, but basically it's an ambient album. And then we finished that up with like Let's Dance. I think is also not regarded as maybe one of its best. It's kind of in the middle, but I really like Let's Dance. But yeah, like Ziggy Stardust came out kind of like right smack dab in the middle of, like I said, some of his most incredible work. Like right after Hunky Dory, right before Aladdin Sane. The Man Who Sold the World, I think, is also like really good. I don't think you can go wrong with a whole lot of like David Bowie like albums necessarily, especially ones from the '70s. I think the '70s were like peak David Bowie for sure. But that is going to do it for this video. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you again in a week with a whole new album. No idea what that's going to be yet, but we'll be back with that in a week. So that's going to do it for now. So thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one.